Raymond Griffin, a successful businessman, a model husband. But behind that perfect facade lies a dark secret. When his wife Aurora discovers a hidden phone, she falls into a nightmare that cannot be escaped. Raymond's homosexual affair with Ezra, and the secret wedding that he has been hiding. The lies are exposed. The cruel truth leads Aurora to a reckless decision, opening up an unexpected tragedy. In 2016, Raymond Griffin, a successful businessman in the financial industry in New York, built a remarkable career with a prestigious investment firm. Raymond was born in 1981 and grew up in a wealthy and powerful family where he was always expected a lot. His career took off early thanks to his talent and hard work, making him a symbol of success in the financial world. With his confident and elegant appearance, Raymond is admired and respected by society. In 2012, Raymond met Aurora Hayes, a famous interior designer, at an event in New York. Aurora was born in 1985 and comes from a middle-class family, but thanks to her talent and perseverance, she has made a name for herself in the interior design industry. Aurora has a strong and independent personality, but at the same time is gentle and delicate. Her intellectual beauty and charisma quickly attracted Raymond's attention. The two quickly became drawn to each other, and before long, they began a promising relationship. In 2014, Raymond and Aurora got married in a lavish wedding in the upper-class area of New York. Their married life seemed perfect in the eyes of everyone around them. With a stable career, sweet love, and a close relationship, they quickly had a small family. In 2015, Aurora gave birth to a lovely baby girl whom they named Aurora. Aurora is the center of family life, bringing happiness and pride to both Raymond and Aurora. They have become a model of a happy and successful family, admired by friends and relatives. Raymond and Aurora's life seems to have reached the peak of fulfillment. Aurora paused her interior design career to take care of her family, while Raymond continued to develop his career with great strides. He often travels for work to expand large projects, and his success is constantly recognized. Aurora is proud of her husband, and they both try to maintain a happy home for Aurora. However, things began to change gradually, although no one noticed it clearly at first. Raymond's business trips became more frequent and longer, and every time he returned home, Aurora felt that something was wrong. Raymond became more and more distant, no longer spending as much time with his family as before. He often fell into unusual silences, and their conversations became short and fragmented. Aurora tried not to pay too much attention, thinking that the pressure of work was weighing on Raymond. She believed that he just needed time to regain balance in his life. However, anxiety still silently clung to Aurora. She began to pay more attention to her husband's behavior. Raymond often carried his phone with him, never taking his eyes off it, and when he received a text or call, he often went outside to answer it. These signs made Aurora even more suspicious, but she still tried to reassure herself that it was just unfounded anxiety. One day in the spring of 2017, while Raymond was at work and Aurora was cleaning the house, she accidentally discovered a strange phone in the drawer of the office. The phone was not like the one Raymond usually used. It looked old, but it still worked. Curiosity urged Aurora to open the phone. She could not have imagined that what she saw would change her life forever. The phone was full of messages and pictures from a strange man named Ezra. At first, Aurora could not understand the connection between Raymond and this man, but as she read more carefully each message, each picture, she began to understand more. The affectionate words, the intimate pictures between Raymond and Ezra appeared clearly before her eyes. The truth about the secret homosexual relationship that Raymond had kept hidden for so many years was finally revealed. Aurora felt as if her world was crumbling beneath her. The husband she loved and trusted was now hiding another life. All her trust, all her hopes for a happy and stable family seemed to vanish in an instant. Aurora stood there clutching her phone, overwhelmed with emotions, anger, pain, and deep betrayal. She didn't know what to do next, but she knew that she couldn't stay silent and ignore this horrifying truth. From that moment on, the life Aurora had known was completely changed. The happiness that seemed so solid now became a nightmare. But she couldn't face Raymond right away. She needed time to think, to learn more about the relationship between Raymond and Ezra. Aurora knew that she couldn't act hastily, and she had to prepare herself for the worst that could happen. Aurora sat alone in the living room, holding the phone she had just discovered, her eyes glued to the haunting messages and pictures. Everything seemed to blur around her. Images of Ezra, a complete stranger, and Raymond, the husband she had always loved and trusted, appeared clearly and blatantly on the screen. They were not just casual messages, but warm words of affection, secret dates, and pictures that made her heart clench. At first, Aurora could not accept what she had just seen. She tried to convince herself that maybe this was a misunderstanding, some cruel joke. But each message, each picture became clearer and more undeniable. Every little detail in the messages made her realize that this was not a fleeting relationship, but something that had lasted for a long time. They made plans together, went on dates in many places, and it was clear that this was a relationship full of emotional attachment, beyond her imagination. Aurora's mind was in turmoil. She had long felt the changes in Raymond's behavior, from his secretive text messages to his increasingly long business trips. She had always tried to push away negative thoughts, reassuring herself that he was just busy with work. But now, everything she had tried to justify to Raymond was meaningless. The truth had come out, and it was more devastating than anything she could have imagined. Aurora sat blankly at her desk, her hand clutching the phone as undeniable proof of her betrayal. Everything seemed to be spinning in her head. Her heart was filled with anger, mixed with the feeling of being utterly deceived. She had trusted Raymond, had thought that their marriage was unbreakable, but now she realized that she had been living in an illusion all these years. Her heart was heavy, not knowing where to start to face the man she had sworn to love for life. Deep down, she still wished that everything was just a misunderstanding, that Raymond would explain and apologize, but the fear of the truth overwhelmed everything, leaving her with no choice but to confront him. Aurora felt like everything was falling apart around her. The husband she loved, the father of her daughter, was now leading a different life behind her. She didn't know where to start or how to deal with this. The emotions that flooded her, hurt, anger, and bitter betrayal, all mixed together, creating an anguish that no words could describe. She couldn't let this go on without doing anything, but confronting Raymond right now seemed too difficult. Aurora didn't want to start a fight right now. Not when she didn't know the whole truth. She needed more time to investigate more thoroughly, to know for sure that everything was more than just a glimpse on her phone screen. In the days that followed, Aurora quietly continued her daily life, even as a storm continued to rage inside her. Whenever Raymond returned home from long business trips, he acted as if nothing had happened. He still spent time playing with Aurora, taking their daughter to the park, or attending family events. But Aurora couldn't help but notice his every move, every little detail that she had previously overlooked. Raymond seemed to be becoming more and more distant, often engrossed in his phone or busy with work. His secret text messages became more and more obvious to Aurora, and that only made her more suspicious. When he wasn't home, Aurora began to dig deeper into the phone she had discovered. She read every text message, every conversation between Raymond and Ezra, promises of love, plans for the future together, and secret meetings in places Aurora had never known. Ezra, this stranger, was not just a random appearance. He had entered Raymond's life with force and influence. Aurora realized that their relationship had lasted for at least 2 years, while she had been living in the illusion of a happy marriage. They often met at luxury hotels in New York and even went on trips together. The places Raymond said he went on business now matched the places he and Ezra had been together. Aurora knew that she could not remain silent forever. She could not continue to live with this hidden pain without facing the truth. But she also did not want to act hastily without having all the evidence. Aurora decided to find out the cruel truth to the end before making any decisions. She knew that a confrontation with Raymond was inevitable, but she needed more information so as not to be surprised or overwhelmed by any excuses that might come from him. One night, while Raymond was taking a shower, Aurora sneaked into her second phone again. This time, she discovered that Raymond and Ezra had planned to meet at a house on the outskirts of town during his next business trip. This house was clearly not just a casual rendezvous, but a private place that they had used many times before. Aurora's emotions were further pained by the thought that Raymond had a secret place to meet his lover without her knowing. Aurora could not sit still as the information and images from Raymond's second phone kept flashing through her mind. The secret relationship between Raymond and Ezra was not just a normal betrayal, but there was more to it than she could understand. She knew that she needed to act quickly and wisely, because things seemed to have gone further than she had imagined. Determined to find out the whole truth, Aurora decides to hire a private detective to investigate Ezra, the man who ruined her life. Aurora chose to hire one of New York's top private investigators, who had years of experience investigating sensitive incidents. She didn't want to leave out any details about Ezra, from his past to his current relationship with Raymond. Aurora gave the detective all the information she had from the second phone numbers, places they often met, and even the days Raymond said he was on business trips. Within a week, the detective had made initial discoveries that shocked Aurora even more. Ezra was not a random stranger who appeared in Raymond's life. He was a successful man, working in the art field and living in a city near New York. Raymond first met Ezra at a small art exhibition in the city. Ezra, a young artist with sharp eyes and a confident demeanor, attracted Raymond at first sight. The two talked about art, about life, and gradually their relationship developed. Ezra gave Raymond a new feeling, something he had never felt in his busy and responsible life. He felt free, not bound by what society or his family expected. That was why he could not give up Ezra, even though he knew that this would cause bad consequences. But what Aurora could not believe was that the relationship between Raymond and Ezra did not stop at secret meetings. They secretly held a private wedding in 2016, just a few months after Aurora gave birth to their daughter Aurora. The wedding was held at a luxurious resort in the suburbs, where no one would recognize them. The wedding was attended by only a few close friends of Ezra and Raymond. The detective provided Aurora with photos and documents proving that the wedding had taken place in private, with pictures of Raymond and Ezra in wedding attire exchanging vows under the sunset sky. Aurora could barely breathe when she saw these pictures. She not only discovered her husband's secret homosexual relationship, but also learned that Raymond had established a separate life with Ezra, as if she and her daughter had never existed. Each page of the detective's documents contained information that left Aurora in a state of shock and confusion. Raymond had not only secretly met Ezra, but they had also built a committed relationship that even crossed the line of normal betrayal. The wedding between Raymond and Ezra was not only a sign of affection, but also an affirmation that Raymond had built a parallel life, completely alien to the family he had sworn to love and protect. Aurora tried to stay calm, but inside she was a storm of anger and pain. Everything she had believed about her marriage had turned into an unforgivable lie. She couldn't believe that the man she had loved and trusted all her life could betray her so cruelly. But what was worse was that Raymond had lied not only to her, but to their daughter, Aurora, as he led two completely different lives. After learning enough about Ezra and the relationship between the two men, Aurora knew she couldn't stay silent any longer. A confrontation with Raymond was inevitable. With determination and uncontrollable anger, Aurora felt like she was on a journey with no way back. She knew that once she saw the truth with her own eyes, there was no turning back. Despite the pain, she felt that she needed to know everything before making a final decision about her life and her daughter Aurora's. Aurora spent many sleepless nights pondering over the evidence the detective sent her, the pictures of Raymond and Ezra at their secret wedding and their promises to each other. She was filled with anger and pain, but she knew that she had to confront Raymond and force him to admit all the crimes he had committed. One evening, when Raymond returned home after a long day of work, Aurora decided it was time to present all the evidence she had collected. She waited for him in the living room, the documents and pictures of Raymond and Ezra laid out on the table. As Raymond entered the house, he could feel the tension in the air. Aurora said nothing, just sat silently, her eyes fixed on her husband. She showed Raymond each photo, each text message. His eyes flashed with confusion and panic when he saw the undeniable evidence of his relationship with Ezra. But instead of admitting his guilt, Raymond coldly denied everything. He tried to distract, saying that those photos and messages were just a misunderstanding, that the relationship with Ezra was not what she thought. Aurora listened to her husband's meaningless excuses, the anger in her rising stronger than ever. In the moment of facing Aurora's angry eyes, Raymond felt an unusual fear. He once thought he could keep both lives, could love Ezra but still keep his family by his side. But now, when the truth was exposed, he felt like everything was fading before his eyes. Standing in front of Aurora, he didn't know how to explain. Part of him wanted to admit it, but the fear of losing everything, his family, his daughter, his reputation, kept him from telling the truth. Lies continued to slip from his mouth, even though he knew in his heart that he was hurting Aurora beyond repair. Aurora could not hold back any longer. She began throwing papers and evidence at Raymond, demanding that he stop lying and admit what he had done. The two of them fell into a fierce argument. Accusations and anger erupted. She had spent her whole life trusting and loving him, but now it was all betrayal. Raymond, in a fit of rage and helplessness, began throwing things around. Glasses, paintings, and household items were smashed one by one, creating a chaotic scene that mirrored the breakdown of their marriage. Finally, Raymond could not bear it any longer. He abruptly turned and walked away, leaving Aurora standing in the middle of the broken furniture. She watched him, tears streaming down her cheeks, but there was only emptiness inside. Raymond did not admit, did not apologize, only denied everything she had discovered. She felt abandoned, not only by the husband she loved, but also by all the faith and hope she had for their marriage. Days passed in tense silence. Raymond did not return home, nor did he contact Aurora. Every day she lived in anticipation and anguish, wondering if the marriage could still be saved. But then, A message from Raymond said that he was going on a long business trip. Aurora no longer trusted any of her husband's words. She knew the purpose of the trip. It was not for work, but to see Ezra. Aurora was filled with pain, but she knew she could not just sit there and do nothing. She decided to secretly follow Raymond on this business trip. She needed to see the truth about her husband's relationship with Ezra with her own eyes, so that there would be no more suspicion or cover-up. Aurora felt that her life now depended on facing the truth, no matter how cruel it was. As Raymond left home to begin his business trip, Aurora prepared herself. She knew in advance the location of the house where Raymond and Ezra were supposed to meet. That was where the detective had given her the exact information. She rented a car and followed them from a distance, careful not to leave any trace. Aurora was determined to see the truth with her own eyes before making a final decision about her marriage. The trip lasted for hours, and the closer she got to the location, the more fear and pain she felt. She wondered if she had the strength to face what was about to happen. But she knew that there was no turning back, and only the truth could free her from this obsession. Aurora sat in the car, her heart pounding as she thought about what she was about to face. She couldn't help but feel empty and tense. She decided to follow Raymond to the house where he was supposed to meet Ezra. But before she acted, she wanted to give Raymond one last chance. She needed to know that, at the very least, if he was honest, she would have some hope. Even though it was unlikely, she still wanted to hear the explanation from his own mouth. Aurora took out her phone and wrote a simple text message. "Where are you? I need to talk to you." She hoped that Raymond in this moment would stop and tell her the truth. Perhaps deep down she still wanted a salvation, an admission, an apology from her husband. But the reality was crueler than she expected. After only a few minutes, a reply message from Raymond appeared on the screen. "I'm in an important meeting, honey. I'm busy. Let's talk at home tonight." That obvious and blatant lie was like a knife stabbing straight into Aurora's heart. She knew very well that Raymond wasn't in any meeting, he was with Ezra. The lies and excuses had become too familiar to her, but this time Aurora's tolerance had reached its limit. All the pain, betrayal, and anger that had been pent up inside her suddenly exploded. Without thinking, Aurora started the car and drove towards Raymond and Ezra's secret house. Every lie she had swallowed now flooded her mind, turning into a storm of emotions she couldn't contain. She knew she was about to do something she couldn't take back, but the betrayal had hardened her heart. She needed to see the truth with her own eyes, to face both of them and free herself. Aurora drove to the suburban house the detective had directed her to. The house was in the middle of a quiet, isolated area, completely cut off from the outside world. When she arrived, she saw Raymond's car parked outside. Everything she needed to know was right there in front of her. There was no doubt that Raymond was here with Ezra. Her heart pounded in her chest, her hands shaking as she gripped the car door handle. Aurora stepped out of the car, her legs heavy as lead. She headed toward the house, where she knew she would find the answers to everything that had been weighing her down for so long. She walked to the front door, not knocking, but opening it wide. Inside, she saw Raymond and Ezra sitting together, both of their eyes filled with panic at Aurora's sudden appearance. Raymond stood up abruptly, his face pale when he saw his wife. The room fell into a deadly silence. In that moment, there was nothing left to hide. No excuses could save it. Aurora felt as if everything inside her was breaking apart, her anger rising uncontrollably. She stepped closer to Raymond, looking straight into his eyes, her eyes filled with anger and pain. Her words were like sharp knives. She questioned him about the betrayal, about the lies, about everything he had done behind her back. Raymond, cornered, tried to defend herself, but fear and shame were evident in her eyes. Ezra, the man who had ruined her life, stood silently by, not knowing what to do in this situation. The argument quickly escalated as Aurora lost control of her anger. She threw things around the room, glasses and objects flying as she vented her anger. She screamed at Raymond, demanding that he admit everything, but all she got in return was denial and excuses. Aurora felt her patience running out. She walked towards Raymond, her eyes filled with anger and frustration. She screamed, demanding that he admit the truth, but his every word only made her angrier. Raymond, cornered, felt like he had no way out. He stepped back, but Aurora kept advancing step by step, forcing him to face all the lies he had committed. "Don't do this," Aurora, Raymond said, his voice trembling. But Aurora wouldn't stop. She was determined, and nothing could stop her. Things had gone too far. Raymond couldn't face the truth, couldn't face himself. In a panic, Raymond tried to run out of the room, but Aurora blocked his way. She wouldn't let him escape this time. Her anger reached its peak as all the pain and hurt she had felt all this time came together in one powerful punch to her mind. Ezra tried to intervene, but it only made things worse. His presence only made Aurora angrier. As anger and panic erupted, the inevitable tragedy occurred. In a moment of loss of control, Raymond shoved Aurora. She staggered, her head hitting the edge of the table with a dry, creepy sound. Aurora fell to the floor, blood flowing from her wound, staining the floor and the pristine white dress she was wearing. The room was suddenly plunged into deathly silence. Raymond stood there, stunned, unable to believe what had just happened. His hands were shaking, his legs were frozen. He stared at Aurora, the wife he had sworn to protect, now lying motionless before him. In a panic, he rushed to her side, shaking her with trembling hands. But as soon as he bent down, Aurora's pained eyes opened, her gaze filled with resentment and despair. Aurora, in her deepest pain, felt the betrayal that had pushed her to the brink. Suddenly, she pulled out a small knife from her shirt, hidden for this moment. In a sudden and determined move, she stabbed Raymond straight in the chest, the blade digging deep into the flesh without hesitation. Raymond jumped back, eyes wide with shock and pain, not believing what had just happened. Blood poured from the wound, mixing with Aurora's on the floor. The room went crazy. Raymond staggered to his feet, clutching his wound, his eyes never leaving Aurora, the wife he had just hurt, and now, in her desperation, she had retaliated so brutally. Aurora, though exhausted, had eyes burning with anger, eyes filled with revenge. Ezra, standing silently on the other side of the room, horrified by what had just happened, unable to move. Raymond and Aurora's gasps echoed in the dead silence. Ezra felt the tragedy unfolding, but had no strength or courage to act. Raymond knelt on the floor, blood from the knife wound and Aurora's wound flowing endlessly, mixing into a crimson stream. Everything seemed to be falling apart around them, with no way out. Betrayal, lies, and pain had brought them to this cruel end. The tragedy had happened. Both Raymond and Aurora were trapped in a spiral of hurt and revenge, with no way out. All that remained was the eerie silence of death hanging over the entire room.